My name is Prabh Nair, and I have a 17 plus year of experience in the information security and GRC. And training is something is my passion. Consulting is basically my profession, and CISM here. CISM is basically stand for Certified Information Security Manager. So can we say information security is basically all about protecting the information system? An information system is basically all about people, process, technology, and data. Is it clear? Can we say like that? People, process, technology, and data, right? So that is basically called as a PPT, people, process, technology, data. Okay, so let's say example, we have a data center here. Okay, so we have a data center here. And now what happened is we have a people, okay, who basically follow the process, okay, by which they introduce the changes in the data center. So if you want to introduce some changes in the data center, what is the name of a process we follow? The answer is basically change management process. If you want to deploy any patches in the data center, we basically follow the patch management process. So here you can see people follow the process, okay, by which they basically manage the technology. Is it clear? And information security is basically all about, I repeat, information security all about protecting this entire asset. Okay, cyber security is part of information security. Okay, so information security protect all type of asset, with the cyber security protect the digital assets. Another important thing we need to understand is the profile called as a manager. So we have a two type of profile in the organization. One is basically called as a manager and one is basically called as a practitioner. So what is the thin line difference between the manager and practitioner? Manager is the one who basically manage, and practitioner is the one who basically implement. The first step is basically approval. Okay, then we have a NDA sign, then we have a scoping. Is it clear? You understood the perspective now? If you think like a practitioner, you will say first step is assessment. This is what we have seen in the organization. But if you think like a manager, you have to follow the process first. And according to the process, okay, and according to the process, the first step, according to process, the first step is basically approval. So you have to think like a manager. So in the entire journey of CISM, you have to confirm the things, you have to verify the things, you have to validate the things, and you have to suggest. Your role is not to implement. That is the thing you need to understand throughout the journey. Is this clear? Now let's say example, the company has decided to go for the firewall. So team, what is the recommendation? What is the best firewall as per your requirement? Like any recommendation you have, the best firewall? See, there is no one solution. I repeat, there is no one solution which is basically, fix all the things. The best firewall is the one which meet the business requirement. How many agree with that? Is it true? The best firewall is basically the one which meet the business requirement, right? Agree? So now you understood how to think like a manager. If you think like a practitioner, you will say implementation, Palo Alto, Fortinet and all that. But if you think like a manager, you have to think from the perspective is what is basically required as per the business function. Team clear? Let's take another example. Okay, your system is infected with the virus. Your system is infected with the virus. Okay, your system is infected with the virus. What is the first step? Will you remove the system from the network or will you confirm the incidents? Definitely we will confirm the incident. So that is like a think like a manager. Okay, I will not going to isolate a system without understanding the impact of the system. So certified information security manager, that is a full form of CISM, who basically validate everything, review everything, and then take a call. That doesn't implement. So CISM is basically the one certification with designed for the people who have a responsibility of managing information security program. We'll discuss in the further slide what is information security program. This exam is actually a tough exam, no doubt in that. And more important, it required a understanding of the concept. Question is not going to test you technical. Exam is not going to test you technical. Exam is going to test you concepts. Okay, so let's say example, we have a concept around secrecy and privacy. So secrecy deal with the enterprise data, privacy deal with the individual data. So until unless you're not clear with the concepts, it is difficult for you to answer the question. Okay, now in the cloud case, in a cloud computing case, who is ultimately responsible for data? Cloud customer or cloud provider? Need a reply in the chat box. When you're dealing with the cloud computing or cloud services, who is ultimately responsible for data? So answer is cloud customer. And who is ultimately responsible for physical security? Cloud provider. So this is how you need to understand the concepts. What is the thin line difference between the incident management and problem management? Incident management basically used to reduce the impact, where the problem management track the root cause. So until unless you don't know the basic concepts, it is difficult for you to clear the exam, no matter you reading how many books. So let's understand the exam syllabus. Okay, so CISM is basically a certification from ISACA. ISACA is a non-profitable organization which also have other certifications. Okay, CISM is a certification which validate the candidate to perform the information security activity in the organization. It helps the candidate to build the knowledge around how to build information security strategy and how to build information security strategy which is aligned with the business function. Is it clear? Before I basically discuss about further things, let's understand basic difference between the training, skill, and knowledge. So in CISM training, I don't know about other companies or I don't know about you know other vendors who offer the trainings and all that, but in our training we follow the case studies and everything. So in our training we basically gave you knowledge, okay, which help you to build the skill. And because you get that skill, based on that skill, you can able to perform the task in the organization. Let me repeat my statement again. We have a knowledge that you gain, which basically help you to build the skill. Skill is the activity what you perform, and that skill basically help you to validate the task what you need to perform in the organization. Okay, so this is how you basically gain the knowledge here. Is that clear? Is that clear? So training basically help you to gain knowledge. With the knowledge, you gain the skill, and by the skill, you can gain and perform the activity. Okay. So when we're talking about CISM, okay, CISM basically help you to build a skill around how to become like a information security manager. Okay. Definitely it required previous experience, Amit. We're going to discuss that. Don't worry. Okay. CISM basically help you to build the knowledge around information security strategy. It help you to understand how to create information security program. It help you to understand how to create the procedures, how to understand the business requirement. Okay. How to submit the business case and everything. Everything is basically part of this particular training that we're going to cover. Other training companies offer CISM for 32 hours. I don't know in 32 hours in 1 month how they complete, but our training will minimum take 40 to 48 hours. Okay, at least about my training is 48 to 50 hours, which discuss the case studies and everything. So when we're talking about the CISM part here, in CISM, one thing we need to understand here is you need to understand the exam. So the total duration of the CISM exam, okay, the total duration of the CISM exam is basically 4 hours. Okay, it's a 4 hour exam, which is basically you have a 240 minutes, and this need to be so 240 minutes you have to answer 150 questions. So time is not an enemy. So you get total 150 questions. Okay, you get total 150 questions that you need to answer in 4 hours. Okay, you need to answer in 4 hours. First point clear? 240 minutes, and that you need to answer. So 240 minutes you get, which is basically there, and that in 240 minutes, when you're talking about in 240 minutes, you can able to validate, 150 questions. So time is not an enemy. So let's understand in detail so you get a better visibility. Okay, so 50 questions, 50 minutes. Okay, then 10 minutes break. 50 questions, 50 minutes. Then 10 minutes break. 50 questions, 50 minutes. 10 minutes break. Okay, so it means overall in 180 minutes, you have completed your 150 questions. Is it clear? In 180 minutes, you have completed 150 questions. Still, you have a 60 minutes. In that 60 minutes, you basically review that particular pointers. Is it clear? I'm sure you might have a doubt in some questions, so you can review those questions, okay, after completing the entire exam. So you have an option to go back. You have an option to review the answers in which you have a doubt. That is the advantage you will get, okay. But my humble request is there's a two-way to give this exam, okay. It's okay, I can record this statement, but it's very important because I've seen people does a mistake. There's a two-way to give this exam. One is it's a online exam. You can give this exam from the home, or the second is basically PSI exam center. You can go there and give the exam. I've seen the people does mistake, they give the exam from home. You need to understand one thing. If you're giving this exam from a home, which is online, you are accountable for everything. Internet connectivity, your room should be clean, your room should not have any laptop, monitor and all that. And it's lot of stress. You have to see the monitor for 4 hours, limited breaks and all that. But if you go to the PSI center and give the exam, you take many breaks, you have a more control, you have a more visibility in terms of freedom and all that. Okay, take a breaks and all that. You are not accountable for anything. It is their infrastructure and all that. So I highly recommend give this exam from the PSI exam center, because in that case you get as much as breaks. There's no distractions, and there's a accountabilities is basically lies with the PSI exam center if something goes wrong. So I have seen a lot of people failed in this exam because of people giving the exam from home because they're unable to concentrate. So I highly recommend go to the exam center and give the exam from there. Okay. Next important thing when you're talking about second important thing is once you done. So as I said, 4 hours of exam. Okay, that you need to complete 150 questions. You can go back. You can select. If you selected A, you're not clear. You can come back after 10 minutes. You can come back after 20 minutes. You can come after that question after 2 hour, 3 hour. You have an option to go back. So that's a benefit about ISACA exams. Okay. But my humble request is do not flag more than 50 more than 20 questions, because the first 3 hour of your temperament is completely different from the last 1 hour. So you're unable to concentrate, unable to focus and all that. So my recommendation is that do not flag more than 20 questions for a doubt. Is it clear? Do not flag more than 20 questions, because in the last 1 hour, you will not able to focus. You will not able to concentrate. Is it clear? So I highly recommend is that you should not flag more than 20 questions on the last 1 hour. So you can review those questions. One more important thing, the best thing about ISACA is immediately you get a result, whether you pass or fail. But if you want the detailed report, how much score you got, you have to wait for 10 days. Okay, we'll discuss later on about the things. So when you're talking about the exam, it basically, so ISACA organized their syllabus in a form of job practice and knowledge statement. I repeat again, ISACA basically has organized the CISM certification, other ISACA certification in a job practice area and knowledge statement. Job practice like objectives that you have to perform, and to perform that particular activity, what knowledge is required, that is called knowledge statement. Let me repeat my statement again. Job practice area is the objectives. Example, what you have to perform. To perform that particular practice, you need a knowledge. So ISACA organize the content in a form of job practice area and knowledge statement. So once you done with your reading of ISACA manual, or once you basically done with the or whatever the material we have, so my request is basically every domain they have a knowledge statement. If you're able to answer those knowledge statement, it means you are ready for the exam. Is it clear? So knowledge statement, what you need to gain. Knowledge statement is something which is testable in the exam. And job practice area is the parameter based on which they frame the question. Example like what you will do in the case incident has been detected. So there is job practice area. So knowledge statement is I will basically notify the particular party. So this is how you need to have a very good clarity on what is a job practice area and what is a knowledge statement. You don't need to go in detail, because when you're going through the content and all that, automatically you get a visibility of this area. It is just for a reference, I have just said, okay? Now, when you're talking about the qualification of the CISM, once you pass this exam, okay? Okay, so when you're talking about the exam part, so one thing we need to understand is once you clear the exam, I repeat, once you basically clear the exam, it does not mean, okay, you got the certificate. I repeat again, once you basically clear the exam, it does not mean that you got the certificate, you need to submit the 5 years of experience in the respective 4 domain. We have a 4 domain in CISM, so you have to demonstrate your 5 years of experience in those domain. And there is a one application fees we have that you need to pay, which is called $50. So $50 you have to pay for that application fees. So you pay $50. Okay, you process that application. Okay, and then based on that, you have to wait. You get an endorsement, and then you get a certificate. One more important thing: total you get 5 years to apply for a certificate. Let's say example in 2020, you cleared the exam. Okay, you have completed the exam in 2020. So you get total 5 years to apply for a certificate. So example, now you're applying a certificate in 23. So the certificate cycle start from 2023 to 2028. So it will be 5 years. So every year you have to pay the maintenance amount and all that, which is a different cost. We'll discuss later. So every year there's a maintenance fees is there. Okay, $75, $45, depending upon the membership. Okay. And if you, so example, like once you clear the exam, you're not applying for a certificate. So you don't need to pay anything. But once you apply for a certificate, when you use CISM certificate, okay, then from that year, you have to pay the annual amounts, which is approx 45 for the member and non-member, about $75. So if you just need to show your company that, okay, I cleared CISM, they will give you the evidence of that. And by that, you can claim your fund. But if the company want to, you have to apply for a certificate, then you have to apply for a certificate. Now, when it comes to the CISM, in CISM, we have 4 domains. And one more important thing, certificate is overall valid for 3 years. I repeat, certificate is valid for 3 years. So example, 2023, you apply for a certificate. So it is valid till 2026. Okay. So certificate is basically a valid for 3 years. In that 3 years, you need to pay every year maintenance fees. You have to maintain the CPE. CPE basically stand for continuity professional education. Okay, continuity professional education. So that something is basically there. Okay, continuity professional education. So that something is there. Continuity professional education. Okay. So when you're talking about the continuity professional education, it means you have to demonstrate your knowledge toward the information security. You need to upgrade about information security. All those things is part of this particular function. Is it clear? So 40 CPs per year, 120 CP for 3 years. Along with that, 3 years of this maintenance fees and all that. So overall, if you maintain these 2 criteria, your certificate will be renewed for next 3 years. So that is how it works. So when you're talking about the exam fees of the CISM is basically $760. And if you take a membership after that, okay, the exam price will be reduced to $575. Okay, without membership, the cost is $760. Okay, $760. And if you take a membership, it's $575. Okay, let me explain the certificate renew process. Okay, as I said, you have given the exam in 2020. Okay, you have given the exam in 2020. Please understand this carefully. Okay, okay. 20. So we have a maintenance parameter is 2020. I given my exam. Now in 2023, I apply for a certificate. So according to the 3 year, my cycle is valid from 2023 to 2026. 2023 to 2026. Now in this 3 year, every year I have to pay the maintenance fee. So there is a maintenance fees is there depending upon the cost and everything. Okay, depending upon the membership and all that. Okay, so total you have to pay some fees. Like if you are a member, then $45 you have to pay every year. Is the first statement is clear? Every year you have to pay 45. If you are a non-member, you have to pay $85 for a per certification. If you have ISACA 3 certification, okay, then CISA will be different, CISM will be different. Okay, Ganesh, I will discuss that point. Don't worry. So $45 you have to pay for each certification. Is it clear? Ananya, is it clear? $45 you have to pay for each certification. Along with that, 40 CP you have to maintain in a year. CP is basically mean you have to demonstrate ISACA, you upgrading your knowledge. You have to demonstrate ISACA that you are upgrading your stuff. So post sessions, you're attending some webinars and all that. From there, you get the CPs points. Is it clear? So that shows that, okay, you are updating your knowledge and everything. So that is the purpose of CPE. Ananya, clear? So if you maintain the 120 CPs, okay, along with that, you are basically paying every year $45 for 3 years. So 3 year is 120. It's not per year 120. Okay, CPs. For a 3 year is 120. It means 40 CPs per year. So if you maintain the 120 CP for 3 year and $45 into 3 year, then your certificate automatically renew for next 3 year. You don't need to write the exam again. You don't need to write the exam again. So Ananya, I'm sure I'm able to answer your question. Second, okay. So when you're talking about the membership, okay. So normally if you are a student, you have to show the student membership. So there's a discount is there. Enterprise membership is there. You can check. Now, when you're talking about membership price, okay, so you can go to the website and you basically get the membership fees there. Okay. See, I highly recommend if you're planning a 2 exams. Okay. If you're basically planning to give 2 exams, ISACA exams in a year, then membership basically a great advantage. Okay. You will definitely get a good discount. I have seen a lot of webinars, they don't talk about this. And and later what it is basically become a loss for the person. So I highly recommend. I'll explain you why. So you get a better visibility. Okay, so let's say example, you took the ISACA membership, which is approximately cost you $150. Approx. Okay, approx it will basically cost you $150. Okay. Now exam cost is basically 760. So this is basically the website we have from where you take the membership. Okay. So this is called as a join today. Okay, ISACA membership. You get a lot of benefits actually. You get access to their documents, they get access to the things and all that. So professional fees is basically $145. Okay. And if you are recent graduate, $68. If you're a student, you have $25. Okay. You don't need to write the exam again, VP. Okay. The certificate automatically renew for 3 years. Okay. If you maintain the criteria. So let's say example, we have a $150 exam cost, sorry, membership cost. Okay. $150 is membership cost. Now let's hypothetical scenario is the exam price is $760. So 575 plus 150, how much total? 5, 12, 1, 6, 7. I think 1, 5, 6, 6, 1, 7. So 725. So overall you are paying how much? 725 actually. And in that 725, you got the membership also, and you got the discounted voucher also. Is not a good deal? You're already paying 760, right? Instead of paying 760, you first take a membership, which is cost you 150, and then automatically exam price become 575. You took the membership. So in that there's an option called is chapter meet. So weekend they have a chapter discussions. In chapter they discuss about topics. There's a lot of journals are there, a lot of white papers are there. So this is the benefit you get. Now when you go for the second certification, you don't need to take a membership again. So how much you need to pay then? Membership applicable for 1 year. You need to pay only 575. Is not a good deal. Team, it is not a good deal. Directly net saving of more than $200, right? Again, see, even you're taking a membership or not taking a membership, both are basically advantage that you should take a membership, because by taking membership, you're reducing the price to $725. So that is the advantage you get, plus access to the chapter documents. So I believe this is something informative parameters that you can use when you basically avail the ISACA vouchers. Is it clear? Or ISACA exam parameters and all that. Is it useful? See, I'm always concerned about my client cost, okay? Now, next thing is basically talk about the job practice. So ISACA has organized the content in a 4 domains. Domain 1, information security governance. Domain 2, information security risk management. Domain 3, information security management. And domain 4 is incident management. If you really need to pass this exam, you need to have a very, very good understanding of the domain 1 and domain 4. Sorry to say, but domain 1 and domain 4 is very, very important. Okay, so domain 1 is all about building governance. Domain 2 is basically all about risk management. Domain 3 is information security program, and domain 4 is incident management program. So we'll discuss in detail how it works. Okay. But in the 3-year scenario, if we apply for a certification 30, don't we have to maintain the membership for 3 years? Which exactly. But Manish, that's what I'm telling you. First year is okay, but second year and third year will not be that worth. But if you're having a 2 certifications, okay. So let's say example, you have a 2 certifications. So in that case, you have to pay 85 multiply by 85, right? But if you take a $150 membership cost, okay, you just need to pay extra 45 into 45. Okay, again, subject to the requirement and all that. Okay, so if you ask me, the primary benefit, okay, 45 plus 45, sorry, not multiply, 45 plus 45, Lakshmi. Okay, so it's all about how many, like in my case, I'm paying for CISA, CISM, CRS, CGRC, and all that, CGIT and all that. So for me, I will take a membership. That is a benefit for me instead of paying 85 into 4. Is it clear? Okay, so let's discuss in detail. When you're talking about, so your membership is valid for 1 year only, okay, team? Your membership is basically valid for 1 year, so don't get confused. You have to renew every year. Okay, so subject to the requirement, business function, budget, because in some companies, example like Big Four, in Big Four, especially Deloitte, I believe, they have this free membership if you are an employee of there, so you can check with your team and all that. Okay, so that is there. Okay, so when you're talking about the domain, okay, these domains are basically correlated team. So as I said, information security governance. So before I basically discuss about uh, this domain in detail, first let's understand what is GRC: governance, risk management, and compliance. Right? No rule, no direction, functions, and goal is to reach on time. Right? So can we say that is a live example of governance? Governance issue. So governance is basically all about set of operation. Okay, governance is basically all about set of operation. Okay, you can see governance in every vertical. Let's take example, we have a family. Okay, if you take example of family, parents basically create a rules. Okay, they basically create a rule for the kids. Yes or no? To make sure they should wake up on time, 7 a.m. they have a breakfast, 9 a.m. they will ready for the school, then they basically for lunch, once they come back from a lunch, then evening snacks and everything. So what is this? This is basically the example of the governance. Okay, it's called as a parent governance. Understood? Same in the company. Now, government, we talk about India or any country, they want to run the country. So they need a governance, they need a government. Government is basically create a law, and law is basically control the people. So governance is the foundation. Governance is called as a set of operation. Okay. Without government, can we create a law? Without government, can we create a law? The answer is no. Without government, we can't create a law. Okay, government required to create a law, and law is basically used to build the discipline. So governance is basically all about set of operation. I'm sure this pointer is basically clear to everyone, right? So when you're talking about the governance in the organization, okay, so I will explain you with the hierarchy how it works. If you ask me, every organization is basically start with the vision. Okay, based on the vision, we basically have a mission. Okay, based on the mission, we basically create the strategy. Okay, this strategy is basically create part of the enterprise governance. And enterprise governance is basically all about corporate governance. Okay, it is a board or CEO or senior management who create a strategy. Let's say example, company want to go for digital transformation. The company want to go for digital banking solutions and all that. That is basically the primary objective we have. Okay. Now, based on a strategy, what happen is we basically creating a IT strategy. Okay, IT strategy. Okay, and we also introducing the information security strategy. So IT strategy basically includes, their automation, technology, process, and everything. So that is basically their governance, which is called IT governance. Okay. And information security governance is basically used to protect the IT. So information security governance include the strategy, policy, procedure, program. We are introducing all these efforts to protect the IT and also creating a value for the strategy. So this is basically information security governance, which is always run by the CISO. CISO basically appoint the information security manager. Information security manager basically appoint the information security administrator. So that is how it works. So overall is clear, high level. So why are we talking about this? Because it's very important to know the governance. So governance is basically a set of operation. Now they do the risk management because everything we need to introduce, it should be well balanced with the functions and all that. Risk management is basically ensure they comply with the legal regulatory requirement. So that is why we call GRC. So what come first? Governance come first, risk management come first, or compliance come first? I repeat, governance need to reply in the chat box. So what come first? Governance come first, risk management or compliance? The answer is governance. Because governance basically help you to create a rule, set the policy. Is it possible for you to protect all the resources what we have in the organization? My question is that, is it possible for you to protect all the resources in the organization? No. We cannot able to protect everything. So that's why what we did the risk management. Is it clear? We did the risk management to check what is true, what is not. And according to that, we ensure we comply with the legal regulatory requirement. Is that clear? That's why we have a GRC. Okay. Now, I basically join one bank. I want to comply with the RBI. Okay. So I will appoint the people that part of a governance. They do the risk management so that I can basically comply with the RBI requirement. That is part of a GRC. Now coming back to slide here is when you're talking about domain 1, information security governance, remember one thing from exam point of view is ultimate goal of information security governance is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Ultimate goal of information security governance is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. How we can do that? With the help of information security risk management. Information security risk management basically help me to build a program. Now program is basically include all the controls that we want to implement. And when you're implementing control, any gap you identify, you will record and discover with the help of incident management. And whatever the gap you identify in the incident management, you basically report that issue to the board. So according to that, we validate the policy. That's why all these domains are basically interrelated. Okay. There is no video in this particular YouTube, I can proudly say, who explain the correlation of all the 4 domains. And this is the biggest reason people fail this exam. So governance, build the risk management, which help me to identify the gap. When you're talking about information security governance, is basically create a policy, create a procedures and everything. We appoint the CRO, we appoint the information security consultant. Information security consultant conduct the risk assessment, which help you to identify the gaps. Okay, and based on the gap, we basically identify the controls, and controls is embedded in the information security program that is implemented in the organization. And whatever the gap we identify in the program, any issue is discovered in the program, which is captured in the incident management system, which is basically report to the governance. And according to that, we can improve the overall program. Do we have any patch for human stupidity? The answer is basically no. Okay. So only way we can able to improve the weakest link is by security awareness training. So during a risk assessment, we identify there's no awareness training has been conducted. So in the information security program, one of the control, okay, one of the control we introduce is security awareness training. Is it clear? Security awareness training. And then we have implement the awareness training in the operation level. Okay, so we can see that there is an increase in the incident report. And there is a decrease in a security violation. Okay, so that information went to management, which helped them to get the visibility. Okay, this is how we are improving a governance. Okay, so metrics are basically very important. That's why this all domain 4 are correlated. Okay. One more important thing is that, when you're talking about the governance, okay, if you understand this diagram, this is called as information security governance, how we implement in the organization. If you understand this diagram, you understand the entire CISM. You can able to handle all kind of questions. This is the very important diagram you need to understand. So if you want to implement information security in the organization, the first we need to understand the stakeholder interest. So in this webinar, who is the stakeholder? In this webinar, who is the stakeholder according to you? In this webinar, who is the stakeholder? You. Can we say your interest is to clear the exam? Agree? That become my goals and objective, right? That become my goal and objective. I want to make sure my students, my gladiator, clear the exam. For that, what I did, I create an information security strategy. Information security strategy is the 5-year plan. But to implement the information security strategy in the organization, I need to create an information security policy. Okay, always remember one thing from exam point of view. Policy is the foundation of the governance. I repeat, policy is the foundation of governance. So first step is business vision. Then we have a business strategy. Okay, then we have a business objective. Then we have a IT strategy, and then we have a information security strategy. Here we have a information security strategy. And then we basically create a policy. Any kind of a program you want to introduce in the organization, patch management, change management, okay, any kind of program, you need to have a policy first, because policy basically build a strong foundation for the governance. So here we have an information security policy. So that is basically the part of the requirement we have. And then based on a policy, we introduce an information security program. Okay, so policy is strategic in nature. Program is basically tactical in nature. The program include everything: risk management program, security awareness training, firewall, SOC, VAPT, everything. And then we implement everything in the operation level. And once you basically implement, you will evaluate the results to check what is the goal and all that. And based on that, we'll see how this result giving an impact. Positive, it's okay. Negative, we update the goal. So this is the hierarchy we basically follow in the organization, right? So first we have an interest. Based on the interest, we create a goals. Then we create a strategy, 5-year strategy. Based on the 5-year strategy, we basically create a policy. Based on the policy, we create a program. And then we implement the program in the organization. Okay. So team, if you get a question in the exam, you want to implement a patch management system in the organization. You want to introduce incident management program in the organization. So what is the first thing we need to create? You have implemented a program in the organization, but just to check the governance perspective and all that, what is the first thing we need to create? Answer is policy. Any rocket science? In any rocket science you find in this topic? This is how the CISM look like. Okay. Be clear with the concept. Okay, it's very important. Great. Now, let's move to the next part. So this is the actual CISM part. Okay, so this is the hierarchy we have. Okay. Okay. So Yogesh, here what happened when the program result is there, according to that, we update the policy. Okay. If any positive or negative impact is there, according to we update the goals. Let's say example, you are part of my CISM session. Okay. So my goal and objective is to make sure you clear the exam. So I created a 1-month policy. Make sure every weekend you come to the sessions and all that. Is it clear? Every month you basically come for the things and all that. So according to that, I introduce a program. Is it clear? We have a program. So we created a 1-month program. Okay, I implement the program in the operation level. And I saw the result. Okay, people are clearing the exam. So it's okay, I don't need to update the policy. Does it make sense? So this is how we basically work. So if I see, okay, people are not coming to the thing, so according to that, I will update the policy. I will introduce some monitoring and all that. This is basically part of the entire process. So this is the hierarchy we have, which is we follow team. CEO is there. CEO is appoint the CIO. CIO appoint the CISO. CISO appoint the security manager. Security manager appoint the security administrator. And security administrator is basically appoint the security technical. Okay. So strategy created by the corporate governance. IT governance create a IT strategy, information security strategy created by information security governance, and then we have a planning, and then we have a operation. So that is something part of the function. Security admin is the one who implement the solution with the help of operation team, Lakshmi. Okay. If you take example of a technical plan like SOC team is there, the SOC manager is there. Now deploying the solution, we need a SOC admin. And then we have a L1 person on the technical level who implement. Is it clear? So that is what we have. Okay. IT and security will run parallel. Now, when you're talking about the visibility of this domain, one thing we need to understand, we need to have a very good understanding. Okay. We need to have a very good understanding. Okay. We need to have a very good understanding. So this is basically the high level summary we have. So example, like for a CISM, you need to establish and maintain information security strategy. Now question is, what is the good strategy? I repeat, what is the good strategy? That's something we need to understand. Okay. What is the good strategy? The strategy is the one which align with the organization goals and objective. This is the exam question. Okay. How good should be a strategy? So it should be always aligned with the goals and objective. Second is you need to establish and maintain the information security governance framework. If you want to implement information security in the organization, you need to have a framework. A good framework is the one which can be integrated with the corporate governance. If you don't integrate the corporate governance, if you don't integrate the information security, it will not work effectively. So that's the most important part. And it should be backed and supported by the policies. Along with that, whenever you want to convey anything in the organization, make sure you create a business case. How many agree with that? Is it true? If you want to convey anything to the board, if you want to convey anything solution, business case important. Remember this from exam point of view. Business case basically create that document. It is a document which justify the value of the solution to the board. They cannot understand IT thing. They cannot understand the technical thing. They can only understand the business language. So develop the business case to support the investment. Okay. So and we follow the top-down approach. Okay. That's something we will follow. I think everyone agree with me. If you want to implement anything in the organization, senior management support is important. So any question in the exam talking about, if you want to implement information security governance, if you want to implement information security policy, what is the most important thing? Senior management support. Without senior management support, we can't implement anything. Without senior management support, we can't implement anything. So their support is basically very important. Without that, we cannot able to implement anything in the company. Okay. Do you find something insight so far in this particular session on CISM? And are we on the same pace? Great. Another important thing, once you're creating an information security strategy, then you're creating a policy, then you're creating a program. A good program is the one which is basically aligned with the business objectives. That's a most important part we have. Is it important to communicate whatever you create a policy and everything to the employees? My question is it important to communicate policy, strategy, everything to the employees? Definitely. Once you create a strategy, once you create a policy, communication is important. That basically help you to build the culture. Okay. You need to promote the program. You need to integrate the information security requirement in the contract. It's very important. So let's take example. You decided to outsource your services to third party. Okay. So let's say example, we have a cloud. Okay. Let's take a hypothetical scenario. So we have a cloud. Okay. Let's take a hypothetical scenario. There is a cloud. Okay. So we have a customer here. Okay. And this is basically a cloud provider. Okay, so you want to outsource your services to the cloud. Is it clear? Hypothetical scenario, you want to outsource your service to cloud. Do you have a visibility? So cloud provider has given you assurance that don't worry, we have appropriate security controls. Don't worry, we have an appropriate security function. Will you trust that? Whatever they say, okay, you have a security control, we have no. Writing, it does not mean happen. Go look and verify. So we have to make sure when you're onboarding a cloud, or we're signing a contract, make sure add the information security requirement. I want this control, I want that control, and this is how you can able to build a strong governance. Okay, so that's why we said integrate the information security requirement in the contract. And also very important, integrate the information security requirement in your organization process. That's why we say that what is the best time to introduce the information security? Design stage, implementation stage, or as early as possible. If you get a question, when is the best time to introduce information security? As early as possible, design stage, or implementation stage? Answer is as early as possible. If you introduce security in the later stage, it will be more expensive. Is it clear? So that something is very important. Also very important here to understand is how you're maintaining a process of classifying the assets, identify the legal regulatory requirement. It is very important for you to understand risk management. Risk management has a risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, and treatment. And it's very important for you to understand what kind of a treatment you want to take. So how many type of treatment we have? 4 type of treatment we have: acceptance, transfer, mitigation, and avoidance. What is the ultimate goal of risk management? Reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Okay, so that is something part of the requirement. Now, when you're talking about the exam process, you need to score 450 out of 800. I repeat, if you want to pass this exam, you need to score 450 average, okay, overall, okay, out of 800. Now, how they calculate that? So example, like you need to have 450 in every domain. Okay, you cannot able to predict, okay, to be frank. So 450 you need in every domain. Okay. The best thing about ISACA is that when you buy the ISACA manual, they give you the details. Okay, from domain 1, how many questions will be there? Domain 2, how many questions is there? Domain 3, how many questions there? And domain 4, how many questions are there? Okay, is it clear? So that kind of a preparation is there. 1 month is maximum actually, Lakshmi. So 450 you need to score in every domain. Now let's say example, hypothetical scenario. It is difficult to calculate, Yogesh. They never reveal. Okay, so let's take a hypothetical scenario is in domain 1 you got 450, domain 2 you got 450, in domain 3 you got 600, but in domain 4 you got 420. What do you think? Will you pass or fail? No, they will see the overall average. What is the average you got? Is it clear? They will see the average. What is the average you got? Okay, if average is basically coming 450, you cleared the exam. So my request is basically when you go to the exam, don't think about I need to score 450 never, because for you every question is a combination of all the 4 domains. So you cannot predict which question come from which domain. Is it clear? It's difficult to predict. But 450 you need to score out of 800. Now let's understand the logic. See, exam basically tests some sense of scenario. Scenario based questions are there. In some questions you need to be clear with the concept. Until unless you don't clear with the concept, you cannot able to answer the questions. So good understanding of the concept is basically very important. Okay, another important thing, you need to have an analytical analysis. Okay, because you will be confused between the 2 options. So you have to select one option which can cover other. Let's say example, you are coming for my training. Okay, what is the end goal? Option A, understanding the topic. Option B, gaining the exam, passing the exam. Option 3, time pass. So what is the answer? You are coming for the my training. What is the ultimate goal? Gaining the knowledge, gaining the training, or clear the exam? What is the best answer? Ultimate is to clear the exam by gaining a knowledge and all. That's a combination. Is it clear? That is called your analytical analysis. Is it clear? You need to use a common sense. In some questions, you need to have an audit experience. Is it clear? And we have to pick the one which is basically best for all. Okay. One more important thing is that the golden principle that you need to understand here is, let's say example, everyone in the organization is responsible for security. Everyone in the organization is basically responsible for security. That is the first thing you need to understand. Okay. Senior management accountable for security. Okay, senior management is basically accountable for security. Okay, third important thing, policy drives the governance. Policy drives the governance. Okay, CISO is accountable for implementing information security, Lakshmi. Okay, but overall accountability lies with the senior management. Policy drive the governance. Weakest link is people. Okay, which is protect by security awareness training. Okay, first step in incident management process, confirm the incident. Okay, ultimate goal of risk management, reduce risk to an acceptable level. So these are some of the pointers that you need to remember from the exam point of view. Okay, so as I said, 120 CP you need to maintain. I repeat, 120 CP you need to maintain. Okay, 120 CP you need to maintain for a 3-year. Okay, and 20 credits you need to earn annually, but it is like a minimum 20, but you need to have 40 CP average that you need to have. Okay, that is something is part of the function. Now, once you basically clear the exam, 5-year experience, you have to demonstrate 50 USD, you have to pay for the application fees. And the candidate must have a 5 years of passing date of apply for certification. As I said, 2020, you give the exam, 2025, you get a time to apply for a certificate. Okay. Now, one thing you need to understand, see, in this exam, you just need to refer to important material. Okay. See some manual. Okay, that is the first thing. CISM manual. And second is CISM official question bank. I repeat again, you need to refer only two things. CISM manual, you can directly purchase from ISACA website. And second is CISM official question bank. Apart from that, I don't recommend any author, any videos. I know there are a lot of authors are there in the market, but I never recommend, because in last 1 year, the ISACA has basically changed the pattern of the language. Okay, in the exam. So you cannot refer any third party author. Along with that, if you want to refer any book, then AIU book is there of CISM that you can refer. But along with that, I won't recommend any author book for the CISM. Is it clear? So official book, you can refer. With that compensatory, you can basically use a CISM manual. Okay. CISM manual, CISM official question bank. That is basically enough. That is basically enough. Okay. These are the two important stuff we have. Another important book which I would recommend. So recent version is there, whatever in the website. Let me show you that. Give me a second. Guys, can you able to see my screen? So this is basically called as a CISM review manual. Okay. Print edition. And they also have a digital edition, and this is basically the question bank. Okay. Along with that, I don't recommend anything else. I repeat, I don't recommend anything else. Okay. Ganesh, just remind me, I will discuss that point. Okay. So is it clear, team? There is a very good book available in the market. Okay. Which 16th edition is a new one. Okay. 16th edition. But along with that, 16th edition. Okay. 16th edition, yes. But one more important thing I want to recommend you is there is a AIO guide is there. You can use that AIO guide with the review manual to understand the topic. See, CISM manual, this manual is basically talk about high level statement. So the person who doesn't come from the information security governance background, okay, then in that case, it is difficult for you to answer these questions or like able to understand the things. So if you want to map this concept with storyline and all that, then I will recommend to check review manual along with the AIO. But if you're coming for my training, you don't need to read any book. So that is a record I maintain from last 10 years. You don't need to read any book. My student doesn't read the book. That's a different story. Okay. So manual, because my training have a slides which is mapped with the AIO and manual, and that's why I have a 48 hours training. So question bank with the manual is something you can use along with that. Okay, along with that, you can basically refer. You can basically use the AIO. AIO is basically very good for the understanding. So far clear? Now I will tell you one thing, I have seen a lot of people, okay, simply they buy a question bank. Okay, buy a AIO all in one. Okay, buy a question bank and start practicing question. I will tell you how to practice questions. So my request is 50 questions. You go through that in 50 minutes. When you buy a practice question bank, okay, practice question bank, do 50 questions only. See how much time it will take for you to complete the 50 questions. Once you're done, then review the answers. Even it is correct or even it is wrong. I repeat, even it is correct or even it is basically wrong. Review the description. Because what were your reason behind that you need to understand, and what is actual reason that you need to understand. Is it clear? People does mistake. Okay, they simply read the question, read the answer, finish it off. No, don't do that. 50 questions. Okay, in 50 minutes, review why it is right, why it is wrong, and then review the descriptions. It's very important. There is a one study notes is there, which is called as a CISM study guide. CISM study guide. Please note down that. Okay, CISM study guides by Christina Rina. Okay, this book is free available, I believe. Okay, Christina Rina. If you search on CISM study guide, Christina Rina, it's a very, very good book. It's a very good book. Its book is organized in a form of notes, which is basically a crisp version of the entire manual. So you can refer this when you basically reviewing week before the exam. I always recommend this for my participants. Okay, apart from there's no other author I can trust when it comes to the CISM. Okay, now let's understand the language of the question. How to understand the language? Language is basically very important. Okay, so we have a word like greatest, we have a word like first, we have a word like best, we have a word like main. These actually change the answer. Okay, so whenever the word greatest is there in the question, it means all four options are right, but we have to select one option which is better than other. So let's say example, what is the greatest benefit of risk management? What is the greatest benefit of the risk management? Option A, reduce risk to an acceptable level, identifying, analyzing, evaluating. So answer is reducing risk to an acceptable level. That is the greatest benefit. Okay, so greatest whenever they're in the question, it means we have to select that option which is better than any other options. Second is basically if the keyword is there first. We'll discuss with the question. Okay, we have some practice questions which give you better visibility. Second is called as a first. Whenever the word first is there, it means we're talking about sequence. What is the first step in the risk management? Option A, identifying the risk. Option B, analyzing a risk, evaluating risk. Answer is identifying the risk, because question talking about first, question talking about the sequence. Is it clear? Question talking about the step, question talking about the sequence. Is it clear? So we have to select that option which talk about the first. Now next word is called as a most. Most mean we have to select that option which is the most favorable. Let's say example, in the weekend people go hill station. Most people go to hill station. So if we talking about the favorable here, most people is basically go to the hill station. But the best to be stay at home. So best is a word used according to the situation. Main is the alternate word of primary. What is the main goal and all that? So that's something we have to validate. Okay. So we have some guidelines here when it comes to the questions. Okay. When you read the question, now some question talking about you are dealing with the cloud provider. Okay. You're dealing with the cloud provider and they ensure they have appropriate control in the contract. So writing does not mean happen. Go look and verify. So select that option which talk about audit. Let's example, there is a scenario is you are a security consultant. Okay, you review the business case where the client want to move data in the cloud and contractor or cloud provider has given you assurance they have a appropriate security. So what is the next step? So we will validate what they claim to be by audit. So select the answer which talk about audit, pen testing and everything. Is it clear? So writing doesn't mean happen. Go look and verify. Okay, if the question talking about sequence, the answer should be sequence. Example, what is the first step in the incident management? So we have to select that option which talk about the sequence. The next is we're talking about the scoping. So if the question talking about scoping, if the question basically talking about the scoping, okay, if the question basically talking about scoping, we have to select that scoping. Example, what is consistent in the policy? So we have to select that option which is part of that policy, not an outcome of the policy. What is consist in the risk management? Identifying risk. Okay, identifying risk. Okay, so we're talking about consist, not outcome. Now, one more important thing we have is usage of tenses. Tenses also change the answer. Example, you are a security consultant, you want to implement the policy. You are a security consultant, you want to implement a policy. So you are in a phase of creating, so present tense. So according to that, you have to select the answer. Okay. In some questions, outcome matter, like outcome of risk management, reduce risk to an acceptable level. So that is basically called as an outcome. Okay. So that something is there. So let's discuss with the question so you get a better visibility. Okay. Okay. So first question, in the context of enterprise risk management, which of the following would be considered the greatest risk to an organization information security? Now, whenever you read the question, my humble request, first read the options, then read the question. Okay. First read the options and then read the question. So options say phishing attack, lack of regular testing, disaster recovery plan, outdated antivirus, occasional labs, physical security. It means the question talking about something on the operation level. Okay. Okay. Question talking about more about the operation. Now question is, in the context of enterprise risk management, which of the following would be considered the greatest risk to the organization information security? Now, when you see the term in this question, It is asking you to evaluate the options, which is determine which one has a highest impact or significance, right? Hello, yes or no? Which is because we're talking about the present impact. So that's something we need to understand. Okay. Is the phishing attack that target low level employee has the greatest impact? No. If they don't use the word low level, then we make sense. Lack of regular tested disaster recovery plan, definitely it will create a crisis if it's not updated. Antivirus is an operational issues. Okay. Occasional lapse. So this is how you need to answer yourself. Analytical analysis. Okay. As a consultant, for me, what is a more important? So risk management we are applying here. Okay, which is basically has more impact. So we need to give attention to that. That's the reason answer is B for beta. You saw the description, how I eliminated. Now some question basically talk about the sequence. Okay. The question basically talk about the sequence. Okay. Sequence mean first, last, and all that. So question say, what is the first action the information security manager should take when notify of an unauthorized data breach? So here, typically that we basically asking for a asking for the sequence in a process or steps. Okay. So question might say, what is the first step you're responding to data breach? Option A, notify the law enforcement. That is true. Conduct risk assessment. That is also true. Activate the incident response team. That is also to reduce the impact. Breach is already occurred. Before you notify law, doing a risk assessment, reduce the impact, because understanding and reducing impact also very important for us to understand. So first is basically activate the incident response team. They will do the D, they will do B, they will do A. So that is basically part of the function. Next, the question talking about the word called most. Okay, the term is looking for the answer that outweigh other in terms of quantity, significance, or degree. I repeat again, the term is basically looking for an answer that outweigh the other in terms. Okay, we have to select that which cover other in terms. Okay, significance, degree, or quantity. Okay, so question say which of the following is the most useful for information security professional. Okay, to build for a business continuity. BI is important. Risk assessment is also important. Gap analysis is important. Lack of visibility is important. But without BIA, can we build BCP? No. Risk assessment is a part of a BIA only. Okay, gap analysis is an overall control function. Lack of visibility does not make sense. So we have to select that option which cover other. So answer is basically A for alpha. So BIA basically help you to implement. Why? Because see, BIA will tell us about potential incidents, any related business impact. BIA talk about the consequence of compromise, and BIA actually create a report the stakeholder use to understand. Is it clear? First, we do risk assessment by which we identify the impact, and based on the impact, we try to prioritize with the help of BIA. And when you're implementing control, you do the gap assessment. Is that clear? Okay. So we have to select most. It means quantitative. Okay. Now, sometimes we have to use a word called best. Best is basically use. Right answer is basically A for alpha here. Next is basically called as what is the best expected outcome when security threat is put into the practice with detailed action plan. Best is basically according to the situation. Okay, so best is basically term asking for a most suitable or effective option for a particular action. Okay, it is based on the subjective scenario. Okay, option A, creation of security program, risk management, incident management, and asset classification system. Okay, what is the best expected outcome when security is put into the practice with detailed action plan? So risk management is part of a security program, incident management is a part of a security program, asset classification is a part of a security program. Without security program, we cannot go for BCD. That's the reason answer is A for alpha. Now one more important, yes, Lakshmi, actually that's a way, security program is basically validate everything. It include controls and everything. So risk management is a process. Okay. Strategy is basically implement the program. Strategy we create with the help of risk function. That's the reason. Okay. Now, sometimes the question talking about main. Okay. Main is basically the outcome. When establishing the information security governance framework, what is the main objective? So the word point is main is also called primary or central issue or focus. Okay. So the question should be, what is the main? Option A, define the security role. Is it a main objective to create security roles only? No, right? Option B, to ensure compliance with legal regulatory. Option C, to align information security with business objective. D, implement only technical, no. So the most important part is basically main is C, by aligning the information security with business objective, which include D, B, A, and everything. So that is the pointer we have. Okay. So this is basically all from my side, team. A quick small boot camp of CISM. I'm sure you got the great insight from this particular session. Okay. And we'll making this live session next week, or I think by Friday, on the YouTube and LinkedIn. So you can check that particular video there. And we will basically share the feedback form. Okay. Please fill this feedback form, your feedback, because you can get a certificate, participant certificate, that you can basically use for CP claims. Okay, if you have already other certifications, you can use this particular participation certificate for to claim the CP. I'm sure I try to address all the questions, which is basically you have in your mind. I'm still having a 5 seats, which is in my upcoming CISM batch. The training is not only to pass you the exam, the training is basically make you better CISO. So don't miss that opportunity. If you have a time, you can join the training program, upcoming program. Okay. You can reach out to InfoSec train team. They will help you with all the details. Okay, then this is all from my side, team.